Roll.
All right, perfect. So let's jump into things here. About 6 months ago, the CBS Sunday morning show did a segment featuring Fleetwood Mac singer Stevie Nicks. At the time of the interview, the clip started making the rounds on all the conservative talk shows, and I knew at some point I needed to bring it to our audience here. I don't want to bury the lead, so I might as well tell you from the jump here that the interview centered around Nicks's pro-abortion advocacy. She was making the rounds to promote her newly released song called The Lighthouse, which Nicks claims to have written the day after Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Dobbs decision. At the time, I remember being really disturbed by the way this woman so callously talked about abortion. I knew that I wanted to take my time to really dig into what's going on in this interview and to examine what that says about us as a people, and more importantly, what it might mean for our future. Before I play one of the clips here, I'll let you know that I was really struck by the production of this whole piece. Now, pay attention to the soft, sensitive tone by Tracy Smith as she questions Nicks. CBS also does a great job making the topic seem casual by continuing to weave a collection of hit songs from Nicks' career in and out of the conversation. Pay attention to Stevie Nicks herself. To me, she comes across as just another typical out-of-touch celebrity that has been famous for so long now that she doesn't even remember what it feels like to have her ideas questioned, never mind challenged. She speaks as if she's discovered something that no one else has ever felt or thought of before. She reminds me of George Costanza telling Jerry that he can beat the lie detector as long as he believes his own lie. Nicks happily boasts about making the most selfish, narcissistic decision of her life as if it was a loving, compassionate mission from God. Let's jump into the interview and see how CBS sets up Stevie Nicks to lay some CCP level propaganda on us about her decision to have an abortion 50-something years ago. Juice?
She was romantically involved with Don Henley of the Eagles when she found out she was pregnant and decided that as a touring musician, being a mother was not in the cards.
In 1979, you had to terminate a pregnancy?
Mm-hmm. In my younger life, I had already decided I didn't want to have somebody have their feelings hurt all the time and like, when are you coming back? Well, I don't know. I'll be back when I get back, and not even having any idea how big that Fleetwood Mac was going to get in the future,
I don't know about you guys, but the dehumanizing euphemisms in that clip stick out to me like a masked up liberal on a nice summer day. In 1979, you had to terminate a pregnancy. Then Nicks jumps in and talks about having already made the decision at a young age that she didn't want to have somebody have their feelings hurt looking for her to be home. Somebody. Not a child, not my child, but somebody. She's really justifying the decision she made to have her child murdered in order to spare that child the pain of having to deal with a mother that was never home? How noble of her. Nicks created a child that's only ask would be for the love and attention of its mother. And rather than give that to her baby, she killed that baby to pursue her own rock star style lifestyle. Hashtag feminism. How about we jump back into the interview where we left off there? Juice?
This is like super personal and weird, so I it's like you can edit this out if necessary. But
I appreciate your sharing the story, though.
Well, and it's a good story, too. I tell a good story. I got pregnant, and it was like, why? I have an IUD. I am totally protected. I have a great gynecologist. How come this has happened?
So you took all the precautions.
Yes, and I'm like, this can't be happening. Fleetwood Mac is 3 years in, and it's big, and we're going into our third album. It was like, oh, no, 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 no. It would have destroyed Fleetwood Mac.
If you had a baby.
Absolutely.
Wow. How about the beginning of that clip? Personal and weird are not the words I'd use to describe this story. Maybe heartless and deeply immoral would work better. Nix then goes on to frame this entire disgrace as a good story, as she touts herself as a good storyteller. Unbelievable. You want to turn this thing into a good story? How about we start by making it a cautionary tale that we use to warn other women about sacrificing their children to the devil in exchange for fame and fortune? Seriously, how is this any different than the ancient Mayans sacrificing their children to the sun gods or whatever nonsense those savage tribes conducted human sacrifice for? I mean, she literally says that having a baby would have ended Fleetwood Mac. So rather than ending the band, she ended the life of her child. And the scariest thing about this for me is the thought of what platforming a story like this does for young women in our country. I already mentioned the soft tone that this thing about this thing in the casualness to which it's discussed, but this whole puff piece will no doubt help somebody else out there decide to murder their child on the altar of career success. I'll never make partner at my firm if I carry my baby to term. I have 1 more year left to earn my master's. I can't have a child now. I can't possibly run for office with an infant at home. I'll never be there, just like Stevie Nicks wasn't going to be home for her somebody. What about the part when they appear to be baffled at the thought of having sex, having the ability to lead to producing a child? After all, she had a great gynecologist, and she was on an IUD. The interviewer even jumps in to say, "You took all the necessary precautions." You guys sure about that one? Because there's one precaution that I could have guaranteed you would not have resulted in you becoming pregnant. So Nix and CBS spent most of their time minimizing the horrific actions that were taken in order to give her a successful musical career. Why don't we find out what she thinks about the people that disagree with her decision? Juice?
There are people who criticize your choice, condemn your choice. Anything you want to say to
Well,
them?
I'd like to know, so are you just the few guys who are making the decisions for us?
And ultimately, the choice
Was mine. And you know what? If people want to be mad at me, be mad at me. I don't care. Had I made the other choice, had I gone the other way, I'd have been a great mom. I went this way, and I've done great.
I guess we're just the few guys making the decisions for everyone, whatever that means, Juice. I'd like to know how many of the 60 million babies had a say in what would happen to their lives. Nick says that people can be mad at her and that she doesn't care. But I think she cares deeply about what we think of her. Otherwise, she wouldn't be trying so hard to convince us and herself that murdering her child was noble. She even goes so far as to say that if she didn't kill her kid, she would have been a great mom. Would have been? She would have been a great mom? I know that she's grown accustomed to people telling her lies, sweet little lies. But I hate to break it to you, Stevie, but you were a mom, and you definitely were not a great one. You failed at being a mother. You couldn't even make it 9 months before you gave up on motherhood because it was too inconvenient for you. So what does this story say about us as a people? When a national news organization glowingly covers an abortion, it tells me that America is no longer the moral leader on the world stage. It's a sad day when mothers are praised and encouraged to extinguish their own lights of the world. We are a long way from being the shiny city on a hill. As for what this says about our future, hopefully it's a wake-up call for those of us that have been on the sidelines for far too long. This story is the cherry on top of the failure of second-wave feminism. There's a reason that women's self-reported happiness has been steadily declining since the 1970s, at a time when the secular world would have you believe that women have never been happier. Nix closed her interview by saying, quote, There is a God, and God gave me this talent to sing and write and dance, so I'm doing my job. Close quote. I'm glad that she acknowledges and realizes that God exists, but unless she can figure out how to repent, I fear that she'll never get the chance to meet him. And with that being said, I do believe it's time to welcome in our good friend, Mr. Ric Flair, because it is showtime, baby. Woo!
Showtime! Woo! Woo!